Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. I hope you all had a great and awesome weekend. Wanted to take this time to welcome you guys to the last but best mentorship session that we have this semester. I am Crystal Ivy, a 2014 MBA graduate from the Terry College of Business. I am also a member of the Women of UGA Council, serving as the committee lead for Mentorship Monday. So thank you guys for taking out time in your day today to join us for a very exciting session we have today. As you guys know, we have Maria Taylor here speaking with us. She's going to give us a lot of great, awesome information during today's session. Before we kick things off, I wanted to go over some housekeeping and logistics for you guys. We are using a new session this go round. So wanted to make sure that you guys know that feel free to use the comment section for any chats or questions that you guys may have. Also know that we will have a question and answer session at the end of this, so get your questions ready to go. We're excited to have those answered by Maria today. And then also, if you're having trouble seeing that chat function, just refresh your page and that should help you there. But as we kick things off, I wanted to start with sharing with you guys some exciting news. As you guys know, one of the things that we put forward with the Women of UGA Council is a scholarship. So thanks to all the efforts and support and generosity that you guys have given us, we have reached our goal of raising $25,000. So we have endowed our second Women of UGA scholarship. As of right now, this will fund and support one student with a $1,000 scholarship in the very near future. But as you guys continue to think about where you want to support and give funds, continue to make sure that Women of UGA is a part of your list of places that you give, because the more you give, the more we're able to give to students, as well as it increases the number of scholarships that we can give. And of course, our purpose is always to make sure that we're helping students and we're removing any barriers that keep students from pursuing their academic dreams. So again, thank you, ladies, for everything that you've done to help us reach our second endowment of that scholarship. One lucky graduate, Tyler Norman, will actually be moderating today's session with Maria. Super excited to be able to have her come in and moderate this. She's hailing from Conyers, Georgia. She arrived on campus and got involved in several organizations during her time here, including Alpha Kappa Alpha. She's also the president of UGA's chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists. And in her spare time, she is the owner of Taken by Tyler, a photography service company. So she's done a lot of great things with the University of Georgia. She actually is a very recent graduate as of this past weekend from the Grady College of Journalism and Mass Communication with a degree in journalism. She also earned a minor in Spanish and sports management with a certificate in sports media. So we are excited and honored to have her moderate for us today. And hopefully she's as excited as we are to have her. So welcome, Tyler Norman. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Hopefully you had a really great weekend celebrating a much deserved accomplishment. So thank you for taking the time out today to moderate with us. Before we get started and hand everything to you to moderate, I do want to take some time out just so everyone on the call today gets a chance just to know how great and wonderful you are. So I'm going to ask some questions just to kind of allow you to introduce yourself to the audience we have today. But the first question is, tell us a little bit more about the things that you're passionate about.
Well, one thing that I'm really passionate about, and just going back forward to NABJ and just other things that I've done at UGA, is increasing diversity in the media field. That's something that I hope to see more of going forward. And I just hope to pass on like some of these nuggets too that I learned, hopefully going forward to people. That way we can just continue to increase the amount of minorities that we see in the media field.
I love it. That is great. The next question that I have for you to share with us is, when you think about your time at UGA and being a recent graduate, what is the thing that you would say you would highlight or be one of the best things about UGA in your time here?
I would say that the best thing about my time at UGA was definitely joining my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I love the time that I got to spend with my sisters, and I love that it's a lifelong thing that I'll get to continue to work with them and serve with them just for the rest of my life.
That is awesome. I love it. The next question I have for you is, now that you're a graduate and going on to your next adventure, what are your plans now?
Well, I'm actually starting an internship in June with ESPN's marketing creative department, so I'm really excited to be doing that.
That is great. Staying here in Atlanta and ESPN, so following your dreams most definitely is a good thing. The last question that I have for you before I turn it over is, who's your professional hero or heroes?
Well, coincidentally, Maria Taylor is one of my professional heroes. She has been since I first decided that I wanted to go into sport journalism. And I just love her work ethic and how hard she works to get to where she is. And I'm really excited to have the opportunity to moderate this conversation today with her.
Well, that is awesome, Tyler. That makes us that much more happy and excited that you are taking the reins now and will be getting a chance to moderate and speak and have a conversation with her. Thank you again. And I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Well, first, I wanted to, before we get started, just introduce our speaker today. Thank you so much, Maria, for joining us. And I think that we actually have a video to show before we get started.
I grew up in Alpharetta, Georgia. I went to Centennial High School. Go Knights. I was really confused about the bus system. I still don't really know where East-West goes. I changed my major 3 times when I arrived at the University of Georgia, but I landed on broadcast news and graduated from the Grady College. My first UGA dorm was Rooker. Shout out to ECV. Bossy, which I try not to be, but probably still am. A UGA professor that I still remember is Professor Hazinski, and he was the guy that went around the room and told everyone whether or not you were gonna make it in news. As a student, I played volleyball and basketball at the University of Georgia, so my one and only job was to beat Florida every time I stepped on a court. Last resort, I love their desserts. The blackout game against Auburn, when all of the Georgia football players came out and warmed up in their red jersey, went back in the locker room and came out in all black, and I watched the entire Sanford Stadium explode in excitement. Take accounting and I will never do it again. Red all day. North Campus. UGA. Ramsey Center, go volleyball players. I can hide it when I'm working, but if I'm anywhere else, it's all over. I get so hype and yell "Go Dogs" and everyone thinks we're weird, but we get it. Deborah Roberts and Ernie Johnson. It's been like having a Zoom every single day, and it's really confusing as to whether or not I'm the interviewer or the interviewee. Nick Saban. Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, bring your wife. To treat every single person as if they're the most important person in the world. Real Housewives of Atlanta. Giving the commencement speech at the University of Georgia. When I accidentally ran up to Bob Stoops' brother instead of him to do the halftime interview and didn't get the interview, so I learned that I should probably do my research a little bit better before going to a game. Titanic. Drake. At the Dark End of the Street by Danielle McGuire. Not loving your neighbor. Remember, your steps are ordered, so don't get frustrated, don't get scared, and please be fearless. That was fun.
Well, that was a great video just introducing our speaker today. And before we get to the question portion, I just want to tell you guys a little bit more about Maria and the work she's done. So Maria joined ESPN as a college analyst and reporter in 2014. She's one of the network's most versatile commentators. She was named a reporter for College Game Day, built by Home Depot, and ABC's Saturday Night Football in 2017. She added NBA Countdown hosting duties to her roster in 2019. She had previously served as the host of SEC Network's traveling pregame show, SEC Nation, alongside analysts Tim Tebow, Marcus Spears, and Paul Feinbaum. Excuse me if I pronounced his name wrong. Taylor's versatility is showcased on a variety of ESPN shows and platforms as she hosts College Football Live, Big Monday, and NCAA Women's Final Four studio coverage. She serves as a regular co-host on Get Up and works as a sideline reporter on Saturday Primetime and marquee men's basketball games throughout the season. In addition, Taylor is an analyst on other SEC and ESPN telecasts, including volleyball and women's basketball. She's also a part of ESPN's NBA draft coverage. She attended the University of Georgia, where she played volleyball and basketball for the Bulldogs and was named to the All-SEC volleyball team 3 times, and was also a member of the USAA2 national volleyball team. She graduated from Georgia in 2009 with a degree in broadcast news, and then she returned to the University of Georgia to pursue her Master of Business Administration, which she completed in May of 2013. She is a native of Alpharetta, Georgia. And now that we've learned a little bit more about her, we can go ahead and introduce our speaker. And welcome, Maria Taylor.
Thank you so much for having me. Great intro. The great part about this is we actually got to meet while I was in town for the commencement. So I feel like you did your research. We had our backup interview, and now we get to do it for Mentorship Monday. So more than happy to be here. Go Dogs for everyone who's joining us on the conversation. And Tyler, you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. So we've been able to hear a bit about your journey from the video and see some of it as well. So the first question is, how did your professional journey lead you to this point?
I think, I always say that my steps are ordered, but really it all started at Georgia. I had to kind of mull through a lot of different majors to decide that I wanted to work in sports broadcasting. But when I did, I started telling everyone. I always tell people that closed mouths don't get fed. So I would tell our athletic director, and I would tell my professors and everyone who would listen to me that I was interested in working in sports broadcasting. And ultimately, it was those individuals that I continued to talk to, probably talk their ear off, that opened doors for me. Or when opportunities came, and at the time, Comcast Sports South was looking for a volleyball analyst, they would mention my name. And so I would get that opportunity. And kind of by word of mouth, I feel like my professional journey has taken off. But it doesn't start without just telling people what your goals are. Because even as an athlete, if you have goals for yourself, but you don't speak them out to your team or let your coaches know, then no one can kind of help you get there. So I think the most important thing is talking about your goals, allowing people to help you along the way.
We talked a little bit about you changed your major a few times. Could you tell me what you changed them from, and kind of a bit about how you knew that broadcast journalism was the path for you?
Yeah, great question. So basically, when I got to school, I was in high school and I took the health science track. So literally my internship, my senior year, I spent half the day in classes and the other half the day working at a pediatrician's office because I really thought that I wanted to work in medicine. And when I got to school, I took biology and I took pre-calculus, knowing that you would have to continue on and take calculus and whatever other super advanced math you have to take in order to be a pre-med major. And I took both those classes and I just really didn't like them, one, and two, I just wasn't very good at them. And, I started to realize, okay, that's not my strength. So I went back to the drawing board, had conversations with my parents, and I changed it to business. And the same thing happened. I took accounting, I took finance, I took real estate, and nothing sparked me. There was there wasn't a joy there. It wasn't a genuine interest. And I was terrible at accounting, and I still am and would be, even though I went back and got my MBA. And I just realized that I needed to pick something that played to my strengths, which happened to be conversating and talking to people. I love the idea of telling stories. I took public speaking, and I loved public speaking when I was a freshman. So my best friend was majoring in broadcast journalism, and she wanted to be the news anchor in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It was her goal her entire life. I went to a class with her, intro to journalism, and loved it. And I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. So finally something was speaking to me. And as soon as I got into Grady and got into that track, literally every class I enjoyed. It didn't feel like work. It didn't feel like a burden. It didn't feel like pressure. It just felt like something I really enjoyed doing, the same way I felt about my sports always growing up.
And just a question that I'm interested in, I know that we kind of maybe have different classes now, but what was your favorite class that you took in Grady?
That's a great question. We had a news writing class, and I always bring up Professor Hazinski because he was so cut through and cutthroat, so he was the guy who told me, listen, there's no money in sports and you're never going to make it in sports. And he was super honest. He was telling you how hard you would have to work to make your dream come true. But in that class, he was teaching us how a great story is built and how it's built for television as a broadcaster. And I feel like I still take a lot of those same principles with me everywhere that I go, because you can tell, a person's life story in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So we have to do it all the time. And the beginning of that, or the maturation process of that, started in that news writing class, which I really, really enjoyed. And I think the fundamentals are the most important part of being a great broadcaster. And they're the most important part of a lot of things. But when you are in those very first classes, and I think he was literally my first class in Grady, the first class that I stepped into after I had made it into Grady College. And it was just a fun one. I enjoyed every second of it.
That sounds fun. And I know that you can correct me if I'm wrong, but your first job out of college in broadcast was working with IMG. Mm-hmm. So just kind of going from IMG to traveling over to do different jobs to now working for ESPN, what are 2 to 3 career direction moments that really stand out to you?
Yeah, and I would love to. So first job, just so you guys know, I was making $28,000 maybe if I was lucky. And then they asked me if I wanted to do the women's basketball radio, and that was an additional, say, 30 games. And they were like, great, we'll pay you like $5,000 more. So I was so excited to be making like 32.5 coming out. And I say that because you guys some kids are about to graduate, or some students are about to graduate, and you're figuring out what your salary is supposed to look like. And just know that you start from the bottom and you get to wherever you get to. Your hard work, your attention to detail, and your relationships will dictate where you end up. But don't let that be something that you're very focused on. And so when I first graduated, all I was doing was we had radio broadcasts for volleyball and basketball. And every single day we came in, we did something called Georgia Sports Daily, where I literally was like the reporter of Georgia sports. And I would film myself, or one of my teammates or one of my coworkers would film me in front of a tree. And I'd be like, okay, these were the practices that happened. This is what Coach Rick said today. And there's an equestrian meet later on Friday. And we did that every single day. And eventually one of the athletic directors that I had told I was interested in broadcasting met someone from Comcast Sports South, and they said that they needed an analyst for like 5 SEC volleyball matches. And that's how I got on television. Really, that was a turning point for me. So they gave me 5 matches. Me and my mom drove to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I had no clue what I was doing. But when I got in the seat and we put the headsets on, you see your play-by-play and you see your analyst sitting side by side, I knew that was what I was supposed to be doing. And that role kind of turned into Comcast Sports South allowing me to do high school football games. So me and my mom were driving to Grayson and Northwest Whitfield, like the border of Tennessee and Georgia, to do these high school football games. That's how I learned how to be a football reporter. And then when Comcast came back and said, okay, Allison Williams, who is moving on to ESPN, and she actually still works at ESPN, would you like to take her role as the sideline reporter on the weekly SEC football game? And I'm like, great, let's do that. And still, those games weren't great. They were like Vanderbilt playing Buffalo. So it was the worst game in the package of SEC games, but it was an opportunity for me to break into college. And then the turning point comes where Mark Schleybaugh is working with me for Comcast, and he literally walks me hand in hand over to meet someone that works at ESPN, because he's like, I believe in your talent. I believe that, you can take the next step. And I gave the ESPN executive my resume. I followed up quickly, like I had everything prepared, and that began my ESPN career. So those are the 3 the first one is getting that first job. I mean, that's a breakthrough moment. That's like just getting your foot in the door. I think the second was the opportunity that being blessed with, again, my athletic director, I didn't even know the job existed. He had to bring the job to me. And that was the volleyball matches on CSS that grew into so much more. And then the third was a Grady grad, actually, being the one who was the liaison between Comcast Sports South and ESPN. So throughout my journey, it's been very triggered by individuals helping and wanting to help. And that's why I think mentoring and giving back is so important. But also it's about kind of how you work in those environments, and people are watching you while you're working, even when you don't think that they are. And so they could be the ones that are advocating for you in rooms with closed doors, advocating for you with jobs you didn't know existed, and being the difference in your career trajectory.
Okay. And a question that I kind of had, you talked a bit about breakthrough jobs and just getting your foot in the door with that first job. I know for college students, a lot of us are either trying to do that or getting ready to do that. So what's a challenging moment that turned into maybe a lesson learned from that first job that you had?
There were so many. I think the first one that I learned was I had a decision to make. I either could go overseas and play volleyball, or I could have stayed at Georgia and worked in broadcasting, kind of like got my foot in that door. And I had a tough conversation with my basketball coach at the time. And he was like, look, what do you think your future is? If you want to be a volleyball coach and you want to be a player for the rest of your life, then go overseas. If you want to start this broadcasting track, which I believe that you'll be great in, and I believe that should be your end game, then start that. And so the first thing you have to do when you're deciding which jobs to take and which opportunities is obviously you got to go through the open door, and doors open for a reason. But you have to align yourself with the career path you want. You know what I mean? And so for me, I could have taken the side path and gone overseas and probably enjoyed that, and that would have been fun. But in the long run, it wouldn't have got me any closer to my end goal or my dream. So that was one. But I also think that first job was really tough for me. I mean, there were times when I would go and just sit in my car and take a nap or cry because I was like, this is so hard, and am I doing the right thing? And I'm depressed. I'm not being able to play my sport anymore. You're not surrounded by your friends. You have these new coworkers that I don't even know. Do I trust them? Do I like her? She seems like she's sucking up to the boss, you know? And now this girl that I'm talking about, her name's Audra. She's one of my best friends in the world. And I can send her people and she allows them to be interns. She still works in Athens at Georgia, you know, in the sports media department. And so I made some of my greatest friends there. And just know that it's not easy. It's a transition and it's going to feel hard. So in the same way, I always say, like, when you're working out and things get tough and you're sore for a reason, because you're growing, your muscles are growing. And you're going to be growing and developing in that first job where not everything's going to be perfect. It's not going to be easy. You're not going to love everyone that you work with, and you're not going to love every job that you have to do. You just have to be ready and prepared for that. So I had plenty of jobs where I was just like, I don't know lacrosse. How am I going to do this lacrosse game? Or I was a runner one time. ESPN came in town and I was a runner for Monday Night Football and literally just making coffee for Stuart Scott. He had no clue who I was, doesn't care. Like, there's no reason for him to care. And I was going back and forth to Sam's, buying water and, you know, running it in. But I learned what a big broadcast looks like. And I learned what all these trucks are for and how, you know, Mike Tirico and Jaws would go and have meetings. John Gruden would go and have meetings with their cameras before games happened so that they could tell the camera guys what to look out for and what they wanted to talk about on the broadcast. And I don't get to do all that without just being a runner going to Sam's, you know? So sometimes it's those jobs that you think are beneath you and go ahead and take that out of your vernacular, or that you're better than, that are going to be game changers for you.
That is very true. Thank you for that. Going back a bit to college graduation, you spoke at UGA's commencement this past weekend. I know I was happily in the stands and you gave a great speech. But for some of our audience members who maybe weren't able to watch, what was your overall message to the graduating class of 2021?
Oh, thank you so much. I want to say, first of all, that the highlight of my career is being able to give that commencement speech and just be back and able to encourage students that are sitting in a seat that I feel like I was sitting in fairly recently, 12 years ago. And I didn't take that lightly, and that was very important to me. But the overall message were stories that align to certain principles that I feel like I try to live my life by. And one of them is being true to yourself. So, you know, telling the story about changing my major several times until I found the one thing that I felt like spoke to me, and being able to speak that out to my parents and whoever, even though no one understands what being a broadcaster means or believes that it's a real career at the time, you got to speak your truth. The purpose part. So making sure, I believe that doors will open for you if you're walking in your purpose. And for me, a lot of that is being able to tell stories and talking to people. And the job that I had when I first got out and I was working for CSS, talking to fans that were just like at SEC Media Days, it didn't seem like I was living in my purpose, but I realized in that moment that being able to tell their stories because it was important to them, that is my purpose. I'm just a conduit to stories and being a storyteller. And I was walking in that when I got the opportunity to work at ESPN. So I believe that's why that door opened. Talking about grace. And that's something that we all have to learn. And I always say that this is the thing that I'm worst at, the guidepost that I try to live by a little bit more. And that's just giving yourself grace, like allowing yourself to make mistakes and try something new and be bad at it and try it again and be a little bit better at it and then try it again and be your best at it. If we don't give ourselves grace to do those things, then we're never going to move forward in life. And then also extending that grace to others, that other people will probably make mistakes and things will happen, and that's okay. And how are we going to treat them? And then the last thing was legacy. And my grandmother grew up right around the corner from Athens. Actually, I just found out too, because now that the story has been out there, my cousins told me that my great-great-grandfather, he helped build Sanford Stadium. But obviously they were Black and they were growing up in the 40s and 50s, and she couldn't attend the University of Georgia, but she believed in the University of Georgia. And she believed that if one of her, you know, her daughter or her grandkids had a chance to go there, that it was going to be life-changing. She always wanted me to go there, like always. And she was able to see me graduate from Georgia, but she passed away shortly after. So my younger sister graduates from Georgia, and then I get to give the commencement. And I believe that I am her legacy moving on because of the seeds that she sowed in me. So just saying that you leave a legacy in the people that you touch every day and what you believe in about them and what the places that you tell them that they should go and the things you tell them that they should pursue and the encouragement that you breathe into them is real. and it can grow into something. And like, you guys are just starting out on your journey, Tyler. You might just be starting out on your journey, but you don't know who you're going to touch and change along the way, in the same way that my grandmother did. So it was just a super full circle, awesome moment. I got to talk to my cousin afterwards, and she got to sit in the president's box and watch the commencement. And she was like, we literally had to sit on the railroad tracks to watch the game. We couldn't come in the stadium, or we saw the arch, but we knew that if we walked near the arch, we'd be arrested. We couldn't be on the sidewalk on the same side of the campus. And this was their home. Athens, Georgia was their home. And they never hated Georgia. They still rooted for the Bulldogs. They still loved the University of Georgia, even though they had every right to resent it. And there's just so many lessons built into that. And I feel like that's something that I carry with me because of my grandmother.
Yes, that speech was definitely really powerful. My family's still texting me about it. They got it online. So if you can watch it somewhere online, I definitely recommend. But kind of going off of that, this year marked 60 years since the University of Georgia was desegregated. And increasing diversity in the media field is still something that many are advocating for today. How has being a Black female affected your journey and or experience in the broadcast industry?
I think it's informed my journey at every turn. So I recognize that if I'm on the sidelines for a football game, I'm probably the only person of color that the majority of Black football players are going to see during the course of their season, honestly. I mean, it's myself, it's probably Desmond Howard. I think Andre Ware does some games, and Mark Jones. But if you count us all up, you're going to have us on one hand. And so knowing that it's my job to tell their story in the best way possible, and with my unique understandings and my unique background and the way that I'm able to relate to them, is very important, because we all come from different places. And so what they've been through, I might feel and understand a little bit better than one of my peers. And that's a reality. So I've always thought that I feel like I'm the auntie that goes around on campuses, and it's not even just about the football player. I'm like, how are you doing in class? I've had coaches come up to me and be like, can you just talk to him because he's struggling with XYZ? And I feel like coming from you, it might make a difference. And I take that seriously. So that's one part. But I think diversifying the industry, and I've been very diligent about this, is making sure that I know who's up and coming next. So I'm aware of the resume tapes, and I have the links to people that are doing really great stuff in the industry, and maybe they're just not getting the amount of notoriety that they should be getting. And I pass them on to my boss. You know, if we have a broadcast and I look at it and I'm like, okay, we can't have like 3 white men talking about this game. We got to be better, guys. Like we need a woman in there. We need a person of color. Like, what are we doing? And so I've never shied away from that. And my bosses are probably annoyed by that, but it's something that I take to heart, because I think I'm in this space for a reason. And so if I sit in a corner and don't say anything, then I'm being compliant. And I think that was the whole thing that our forefathers kind of fought for, just the opportunity for me to even be able to speak up and use my voice and say that something isn't right. Because before, they might have just had to be there. Like, them being there was the change. Them being there was radical change. And now I can be here, keep my job, speak, and basically push the envelope a little bit forward. So those are all things that are at the forefront of my mind.
And what advice do you have for other Black women that are pushing to give themselves a seat at the table?
I think just remembering that what makes you unique, or what you might think will ostracize you, which is the color of your skin and the culture and the coolness and everything that you bring to the table, it's really a superpower. People want to be like you. Like, we see it all the time. And don't take that for granted. Don't shy away from who you are. Be true to yourself, you know what I mean? And understand that what you have is unique to you, and for a reason it is uniquely you. And you have to lean into that and be okay with that. But I truly believe being the Black woman that I am and the time that I am is a superhuman power. And how can I make it work for the benefit of everyone? How can it be an encouragement for everyone? And I know for a very long time and throughout high school, I didn't think that, you know, because I grew up in a predominantly white environment. And a lot of times you just want to fit in and you just want to like be the norm, you know, you would feel more comfortable or better. But it's not about being comfortable, you know, it's about being a lightning rod, and you can be that in every situation that you're in. So just remember that.
Was there a specific moment that you had shifting from high school to college to now your career where you realized that you had to be true to yourself, or that you wanted to live the true version of yourself?
I think for me, it probably happened later on. So probably my senior year in high school, I played on an all-black volleyball team. And I think this was the forethought of my mom, just putting me in a situation where I'm going to surround you with individuals that look like you, and I want you to be proud of who you are. So we were fresh out of Southwest Atlanta, all black. We came from everywhere. So we would drive from Alpharetta. Me and my best friend would drive from Alpharetta to be there. And the final season, we beat a team called A5, and it's a predominantly white team. And we had been battling against them the whole time I was in high school. And finally we got a win, and their coach came over and he had like tears in his eyes. And he was like, I'm just so proud of you guys. Like, this is really awesome. And I realized in that moment that like us literally just all being there and being together, and our parents had cheers and they were dancing, and like we were the fun court, and everyone would come and watch our matches. Didn't matter if we were playing terrible or being great. It was just like something that was magnetic about us. And that's when I realized there's something powerful here. There's something powerful in all of us, and it's something that brings people together, and it encourages people, and it's inspirational to people. And we don't know what that is, but it's there. And so how do you cultivate that? And I think from that moment on, it springboarded me into college, really believing in myself.
I love that. And shifting just from advocating for people just to mentorship, you're a mentor yourself, and you also are a part of Winning Edge Leadership. How has mentorship played a role in your career?
For me, Tyler, I think it inspires me. There's a lot of times when you wonder, like, what is another football game going to do for anyone in the world? Like, who cares who beats who, if Clemson wins or if Alabama wins, or am I going to remember who won this national championship 3 years from now or even next season? And so you have moments of just like, am I living in my purpose? Is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? And I think the mentoring part of it has become a part of that purpose. And the reason why I have the platform is because I can have conversations like this with you. And I feel like I can, lean into the mistakes that I've made or the issues that I've run into, maybe help people navigate around them, or encourage them that if they're in the middle of them, that it's going to be okay. Like there's light at the other end of the tunnel. And so that's why it's so important to me. I think it's, you think you're helping someone else out, but really it's encouraging you, because seeing your job and your career and your life through the eyes of someone else is kind of refreshing in so many ways. And so when I'm on the road, before COVID happened, literally every game I had someone shadow me, usually a young woman, and we would literally tour. She would come to me to meetings and come see what the college game day meeting is like, come to the actual game, come to the interviews with the players, and kind of understand what they're getting into. And to see my job through their eyes was refreshing and kept me going. So that's why it's important to me. But I also know that I'm not here without amazing mentors. Carla Williams, Dr. Carla Williams, who's the athletic director at Virginia now. She was the senior women's administrator at Georgia when I was in school, but she's moved on to be, the first Black woman to be an athletic director in a Power 5 school. And she in her own right is like this amazing trailblazer. And she's already seen, done, heard, and been through some of the things that, I'm just now running into. And she's been like grooming me and guiding me for these moments. And I'm not here without being able to call her and say, so what do I do now? And so that's how important some of those conversations and the mentoring relationship can be.
You said that Dr. Carla Williams was your mentor. So what's one important thing that you learned from her?
Ooh. She always says, breathe in courage and breathe out fear. And that's something that's important. She told a story one time about being at an athletic director like summit basically, and herself, and there was another Black woman there with her, and they were waiting to getting food. And someone walked up to them and said, hey, basically asked them what they were cooking for the meal for everyone. And of course, it was an older white male, and he assumed that they were the help, or he assumed that they were the cooks that were there, and not that they belonged there as athletic directors. And she said, moments like that are meant to break your spirit, basically, and you can't let it. And you can let someone's, ignorance or fallacies or their wrong beliefs break you, and that's what that's meant to do, but you have to be stronger than that. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is, So those are two things that I've really taken away from it. And she's just like so graceful. She's dealt with so much, she's been through so much, and she's just here. you know what I mean? And happy and encouraging. And she's a great mom. She's a doctor. She is an athletic director. She has a loving marriage. It's just like all the things you could aspire to be, she is that. And so for me, like her as a person and just being alive is an inspiration to me.
You're definitely glad for the role that she played in your life, but for you, what is the role that you are playing in mentoring this next group of young journalists?
I think just reminding people like to take your place, one, and also that when you get there, you have to understand it's a tremendous responsibility. So being a truth teller, being a truth seeker, telling people stories is not something that you take lightly. It's not, you know, the trend of just being on Twitter and tweeting whatever you want to say because that's how you felt that day. If you really want to be in this industry and you really want to be a person that adds to the industry, then I think that that should be at the forefront of your mind. How are you advancing the stories of others? What kind of journalist do you want to be? These are the questions that you should be asking yourself. And then just trying to pull people along. As I see great talent, I think it's my job to connect dots or to help be an encouragement or to make sure that they're moving in the right direction and don't get down, discouraged and leave the industry, because that can happen sometimes too. So I think a lot of that is my role, and just learning from my mistakes and my journey is something that I can always offer up.
Thank you. And before we go to our audience's questions, what are 2 pieces of wisdom that you want everyone to leave with today?
One of the things that I always go back to is just that every single person that you meet, you should treat them like they're the most important person. And when I say that, when you walk out of the room after you've met them, they should feel better than they did before you walked into it. You know, you should leave some little sprinkle, fairy dust of positivity on everyone, especially at work. I believe in that wholeheartedly. I believe that in my teammates. I believe that in the audio guy that's miking me up, to the camera guy, to the custodian that's cleaning up. Like, I'm gonna smile and be happy. I don't care how my day is going. Like, I'm not gonna put that on you. So I think that that's one very important thing. And I think the other thing that I always want people to know is just that your steps are ordered, and sometimes there's going to be a big step and it's going to be a leap. And sometimes it's a little baby step and it's going to be super small. And sometimes it's going to be a step that hurts, or there's going to be a tragedy or something, but you're still moving forward. It's still a step. And those things are already, they're predestined and they're decided. And so you cannot spend time, you know, with anxiety and angst, being worried about where you're going, because you're moving forward. It's important.
I love that. You're always moving forward. Thank you so much for joining us today, Maria. Now we're going to go to our audience questions. So if you have questions for Maria, you can put them in the box, I believe, on your screen, and we can go ahead and get started. So the first question is from Poppy. How do you approach an interview with a coach who either has no interest in doing the interview or just had a bad game?
I run into this quite a bit. And usually the first thing I do, like you're always gauging how individuals are going to feel, or when you walk into an interview setting, like whether or not they really want to be there. And what I usually come back to is like, listen, this is my job, this is my role, and I just have to do my job in this moment. And sometimes when they lash back out, which been there, done that, I just don't take it personal. You know what I mean? Like, I have to ask the question. I have to ask what everyone that's watching this game is interested in knowing. And if they're mad, that's not on me. Like, it has nothing to do with me. So I have to take like the personal bits out of it. And usually the key is asking a neutral question. So I can't walk up to coach and be like, wow, that was like, your offense is terrible. You didn't score it all in the first half. Just say, how would you diagnose your offense? I'm not even going to say that it didn't go well. You know, I'm just going to say, how would you describe what you saw? Put it back on them. If I don't insert myself into it all, because he might say, actually, we did everything we were supposed to do. We just made one mistake. And so we always say that neutral questions just really disarm people. And that's usually your goal when you're going into something where you know it could go, you know, a very bad way quickly. So neutral questions, and usually lean, shorter questions help them. If they don't want to hear you talking anyway, so just make it a little bit shorter.
I'll definitely remember that. Thank you. For our next question, Laura asks, it seems like you're currently living your dream, but what's next for you?
Well, Laura, great question. I don't know, but I do know my steps are ordered. And I think that what I would like to do is get more into a creative role. So maybe that's producing some content, maybe directing some things and telling some longer form stories. I enjoy events, I really do. I'm looking forward to the NBA finals. I'm looking forward to the NBA draft. Those are things that excite me. But I think me being able to create some space and time to get a little more creative and tell the stories that I would love to tell would be something that'd be fun too.
That definitely sounds like some fun things. Ashley asks, how do you deal with sexism in your career? And what's your advice to others experiencing similar discrimination?
So there's a couple things. One, I believe that, yeah, there are just terrible people in the world that you're going to run into that, again, it's not personal. That's who they are. That's where they come from, and that's on them. Don't carry that with you. Let that go. And so you have to go through whatever steps you need to go through to make sure that your employer knows what you're dealing with, that it's on the record, that human resources knows. Deal with that person that way. But I also believe in the way that you show up in spaces is how you'll be treated. So if you respect yourself, if you speak up, if you assert yourself, if you walk into rooms, shake hands, look people in the eyes, sit up straight, sit at the table, it's all going to come right back to you. It's like a reflection of whatever version of yourself you bring in. You know, if you make yourself small and scared and, childlike, you'll be treated like a child and you'll be treated subordinate. And I always think that that's something that you have to remember. And sometimes you have to fake it until you make it. And so as far as being a woman is concerned, there's already going to be a couple of judgments that are placed on you. So you have to show up exactly the way that you want to be treated every single day, even when you're having a down day or a bad day. And, don't let them see you cry. Like, don't let them see you hurting. Just bring your biggest self that you can, and then find the support system that you need to hold you down, because they exist. And make sure that you're doing the things to take care of yourself. We know what self-care looks like. We know what it's like to have friends away from work and create boundaries, and you're not working all the time, because you'll know when you start to get stressed out. But I've learned that as a woman in the industry, you really have to show up the way that you want to be treated, and that'll be reflected in you. And I've seen it go the reverse way, where a woman didn't show up how she wanted to be treated, and she was treated a certain way. And she was like, I'm reevaluating this. We're starting over. And it worked. It really works.
Okay. Our next question is from Neka. She asks, what's the best tip you have for being a better storyteller that maybe we would never think of?
A better storyteller. I think listening. It sounds so simple, but really listening to people. And then once you hear it, so I'll hear a player say to me, well, yeah, I feel like my mom was my biggest inspiration because she did X, Y, and Z. I'm like, okay, I heard that. Now I'm calling your mom, So it's like listening and then going into that extra layer or digging just a little bit deeper. That's what's going to make you the great storyteller. And then maybe you're going to talk to mom, and mom's like, yeah, that's true. But I also remember he had this special relationship with this certain trainer. And then you talk to that trainer. And then you find out that that trainer has been training kids from here to Hawaii and, all of North America. And he has this entire litany of kids that he's been training and working with that all play college football. And it's like, wow, now you have a story. And sometimes it's just a matter of listening to something, digging a little bit deeper, and finding all of those small ties that bind. And you'll be surprised when you run into it. You're like, wow, I didn't even know that this is what was going to come out of it. But it was literally just me listening and following up with the story, digging a little deeper.
That's all what journalism is about.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa asks, there's power in being a woman of color. What can white females do to contribute to the moving forward of a united group?
Oh, I love this. That's so great. Well, Lisa, it's funny you asked that. I can give a perfect example. So when we launched the ACC network for ESPN, obviously I already had the SEC network going. It was great. We get to the ACC network, and the person who was in charge was a white woman. And they did an entire article about how the ACC network is a network that's run by women. And they had this picture come out, and I looked at the picture and I was stunned. I think they had maybe 2 women of color. I'm stretching it. And there were probably like 25 to 30 women total. And I sent the picture to her, the boss who created the entire group. And I said, what's wrong with the picture? And I think what happens is we're all obviously going to be the most comfortable with the group that we grew up with, or the person that looks like us. And that's all good, all well, fine and good. But if you look at your table that surrounds you, or you look at your group of friends and you realize that it only looks one certain kind of way, then the reality is that you're not moving the group united forward. You're moving your group forward. And I had to check her and say that, like, this is disappointing. I'm disappointed in you. And we have to be better. I've had to do it on our women's basketball broadcast before. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, we're here and we're supporting women, and you guys are going to have a spot talking about Black Lives Matter or whatever the women have done for the culture. But if our broadcast doesn't reflect that we actually agree with being united and creating spaces and being diverse, then what are we doing? And so I think those are the questions that you have to ask yourself, because we are running into kind of a saw right now of, okay, are we choosing women? Are we choosing people of color? What are we doing? And we can choose it all. You don't really have to make a decision on one. It's just being aware of the biases that you have, checking them all the time. They're going to come up over and over again. It's what it is. And making sure that you're creating spaces that are safe for everyone. You're asking your boss why they don't have a person of color working near or next to you or in this division, XYZ. What are we doing to make sure we're diversifying the country? Because I can say it until I'm blue in the face and people are just gonna be like, well, yeah, that's what a Black girl would say. But if you, Lisa, or anyone else who's on this call decides to step up, it might be easier to hear, and you might get more done than I could ever get done. And that's just the reality of the way things work.
Becca asks, what advice would you give to someone a few years out of college who is looking to break into the sports industry, but feels a bit far behind?
I would say that look into the sports that not everyone's talking about, right? So everyone's like, I want to cover football and I want to cover men's basketball and whatever else. Go to the Georgia gymnastics meet. It's like they're always in the top 15. You know, when I was in school, they won 4 national championships. There's a legacy there. Do a story on Courtney Kupets, who was like one of the greatest gymnasts who ever lived, who's now the head coach. Go to an equestrian meet. We win, you know, the national championship in equestrian all the time. Go to the Olympic sports that no one's thinking about, where you can cut your teeth, get ingratiated in a culture, or, you know, basically be following a team from beginning to end. They're going to love to have you there. They're going to give you full access and all the opportunities that you need, and seek out those opportunities in other places. Maybe you start hitting up PGA tours and say you want to come and cover them. Maybe you see, you know, what's going on with not the actual Olympics, but the prelims, or if there's something in your town or something like that, and you might have an opportunity to cover, or just be a volunteer or intern somewhere. So just trying not to be narrow-minded, really broaden out the space in what you think working in sports looks like. Because I'm not on television doing college football if I didn't do an Alabama volleyball match. That's how I did TV. My first game on ESPN was I think it was an Iowa State volleyball match. So just know that it can look a little different than what you thought.
For our next question, Rachel asks, Maria, thank you and love this conversation. What made you decide to pursue an MBA, and what did you find you gained from obtaining that degree, considering that she, I believe, is getting one herself?
Awesome. So Rachel, this is a funny story, actually. What happened was I didn't think that broadcasting was going to work out. So I had moved back home. I quit my full-time job at the University of Georgia so that I could freelance, because I was getting more opportunities to work with Comcast Sports South. I was doing a little bit of ESPNU, literally anyone that called. ACC Digital Network, we were doing online games. I was riding to Grand Rapids, Michigan to do Division III volleyball and basketball games, but I didn't know, I didn't have insurance. I just didn't know if it was going to work and piece itself together and turn into a full career. So I said, okay, I think I'm going to go back to school, get my master's. My backup plan can be being a professor or working in an athletic administration. And Carla Williams, Dr. Carla Williams, who we've talked about before, had always told me that no one can ever take your education away from you. And she had always recommended, just go get your doctorate. Like, she was like, aim high, like, go back and get your doctorate. So I enrolled back in the MBA, and I did the one in Atlanta. So it was part-time, and I could work on, or I could go to school on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays every other weekend. My professors were great. It was awesome. I still keep in touch with some of my cohort, and it took about 2 years, but now I look back and I'm so thankful for that time. And I'm so thankful that I have my MBA, because I could come back and be a professor. I do have a backup plan forever, and no one can take away that part of my education. But yeah, a big part of that was spawned out of just like trying to make sure that I'm setting myself up for success in other avenues. And I'm like, I wasn't putting all of my eggs in one basket because the basket had a lot of holes in it. It was not clear that I was ever going to have insurance. It was not clear that ESPN was ever going to bring me on as a full-time employee, and I needed to have a plan. And I was about to be off my parents' insurance. I don't know what the age is now, but must have been like 25 or something like that when I was in school. And so it was like I had to figure it out.
The age still is 25. But T. White asks, what has been your favorite moment as a journalist?
For me, definitely it's they still tie to Georgia. So coming back to Georgia, doing volleyball matches in the same gym that I played in, coming back to Georgia and doing basketball games in the same gym that I played in, and covering Georgia from beginning to end in 2018 when they made it to the college football playoffs, played in the Rose Bowl. We went to the national championship. It was in Atlanta. That whole year just felt like so star aligned. It was my first year on College Game Day. It started in Atlanta. Our very first game was in Atlanta, and the national championship was in Atlanta. And it was my first time like on the biggest stage in college football. And so that whole season felt just great to me, but mostly at the end when it was like, I get to be there when it's announced that Georgia's in the college football playoff. I was the reporter in Athens, and just being around my people the entire time was fun.
That was definitely a fun year. For our next question, Kristen asks, how do you focus on self-care and making yourself a priority while also pouring so much into others?
That's a tough one, and I'm working on that. I keep saying, eventually I'm going to be like, okay, like I don't have the time. And if anytime I'm off, I'm just sleep or something, and I'm trying to be better about, I don't want to just be sleep. I also want to live life and spend time with my friends and, make more space for that. So it's something that I'm working on. But obviously like moments like this, they still matter. And I think that I have the energy to be able to do that. I don't have any kids, so I'm lucky in that way that I can still pour into a lot of different people. And so maybe when life forces me to think a little bit more inwardly and spend a little bit more time with family and things like that, then I will. But until that time, I'll try to do as much as I can. But I'm working on the self-care part. I will be better.
For our next question, Heather asks, how do you continue to develop yourself professionally?
Well, lucky for me, I get challenged every single day, every time I walk into a studio. Just this past weekend, we had the Naismith Hall of Fame announcement special. And so it was my first time hosting, it was a short show, it was a 30-minute show, but it was a interview-laden show. It was announcing awards, and I've never done that before. So this was my first time. And then this year, I, being able to work drafts, there's certain events always that I haven't been able to do that now I'm getting those opportunities, and I learn with every single one. A lot of that is going back. I like to watch people. There are plenty of people. I love watching Robin Roberts, but I think Bob Costas is great at what he does. I think Mike Tirico is great at what he does. And so a part of getting better is putting in the time and the work to watch others who are great at their craft and see, I could take a little bit of that and add it to me. Not that I'm going to be their clone or I'm going to try to be them, but just taking pieces of people and piecing it into what makes you great is something that I try to do as well.
That's a good piece of advice.
Mm-hmm.
For our next question, Hannah John Lewis asks, was there anything that you didn't do while you were at UGA that you wish you had?
Yes, I wish I had done study abroad. If I could go back, I don't even know what the classes are, but I'm pretty sure you can study wine in Italy or art somewhere overseas. I would go back in a heartbeat and do that for one of my summer sessions or something like that, because I think that those are the opportunities that we don't always have when life comes at you and you have a career and you have to put in your off days and you only have 10 of them or whatever a year, so you can't go. And so if I could go back, that's something that I would have done, because I remember some of the athletes at Georgia, they did do it and they absolutely loved it, raved about it. And another thing I might do is really study a language. I took French in high school, but I would get a minor. I think, Tyler, you did it, but get a minor in a language, and preferably Spanish. But I think it's a good time to be able to learn and immerse yourself and then go study abroad in Spain or somewhere where you get to actually use it.
Fun fact, I actually did study abroad in Spain, so
good job.
Glad I did that. For our next question, Olivia asks, what is your best advice for having a good work-life balance?
I think the best advice I've ever been given is to think of it as a stew and not like a scale. So most of us think of work-life balance as like, oh God, I'm too far over here and now my life is dropping down, or vice versa, now my work is getting worse. But to think of it as each time you're dipping a spoon into a stew, and sometimes you come out with a little more beef and carrots than you do peas and potatoes, and that's okay. You know, every single time you dip down, like it's going to be a little bit different, but it's still nourishing to you. And the balance is going to change here and there. So to take the pressure off of really the idea of being balanced, because the reality is when you're in it, I mean, I fly away from my home for 3 days a week to go and be great at work and to come back home to hopefully be great at just living life. And it's just going to look different day to day. But I also think just listening to your body, I think my body tells me everything I need to know. If my skin starts to break out, I need to drink more water and give myself time to work out. You know what I mean? If I'm starting to get sick, I'm working too hard and I need to say no to the next opportunity because I just need a week. You know, and so like listening to yourself is going to be one of the keys too. And also in work, if you're getting opportunities, but you're not being put in a position to be successful, reevaluating some of that can create the balance that you need. And maybe the balance you need is at work. You need more opportunities to be successful, but ones that you're set up to be successful for. And that's important too.
Work-life balance is definitely something we're all working on. So this will be our last question from the audience. Jennifer asks, what would your "This is Sports Center" type commercial look like?
Ooh, that's good. I feel like it would have to have something to do with hairy dog, right? Like I'm just walking Ugga around and then like Tim Tebow is walking a gator around or something, and we just like have a stare off, and then I like close the elevator before they can get in. It's gotta be something like that. Or like, yeah, Ugga's definitely jumping at Tebow. It would be great. It would be epic.
To see that. So that was our last question. Thank you so much, Maria, just for joining us today, for being here and for pouring into us. College students and recent college grads, do you have any final thoughts or piece of advice that you could pass off to our audience?
First of all, Tyler, you did a great job. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations on graduating. This should be a special time and a special moment, and I hope you're cherishing and enjoying all of it. But for recent grads or soon-to-be grads, or even if you're an undergrad, I just want you to know that literally everything is going to be okay. You are going to be able to live the life that you want to live. There's plenty of opportunities still out there for you. You know, once you graduate, it doesn't mean that then 3 months after you graduate, you have to have the job of your dreams. That's not true and that's not realistic. And so let that go and give yourself grace and go to work where you can go to work. Go make mistakes at that job and then move on and get the next job. And I believe that you're going to be great because you've been stewing at the University of Georgia, being poured into by amazing professors and being given amazing opportunities. Just use it to your advantage, use your network to your advantage, and know that there's a lot of people who want to help you be successful in whatever it is that you're interested in. So I'm excited for you. Couldn't be more proud of all of you guys for what you've been able to accomplish and what you're going to accomplish. So keep it up and go Dogs.
Yes, it's always a go Dogs at the end of the day. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Maria. And now I think we're going to pass it back over to Crystal.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll echo everything Maria said, Tyler. 100% thank you for making your journalism debut post-graduate school or post-undergrad with the Women of UGA Council by moderating for us today. Thank you. You did an awesome job. I can't wait to see you on TV one day and everything that you're going to go and accomplish. So I appreciate it. Also, Maria, thank you so much for reminding us that our steps are ordered. Thank you for being vulnerable with us in this conversation today. And lastly, thank you for using your seat at the table to advocate and make way for people like Tyler and those that come behind her. So we truly appreciate you for being a true UGA alum and always coming back and doing great things and awesome things to pour into us. So thank you for your time today for sure on that as well. As we close out, as mentioned, this is the last Mentorship Monday session for this semester. We will come back in August, so make sure that you keep your eyes posted for what those sessions will be and make sure to join us. Be sure to sign up for communication from us if you're not already signed up. And I just lastly wanted to share with you some things that are coming up just as we think about UGA events in general. June 3rd at 7:30 p.m., the UGA Young Alumni is hosting a virtual trivia. June 8th at 12 p.m. noon, UGA Black Alumni is hosting a Georgia Trailblazers event. The panel will highlight and create conversations with UGA Black first. June 12th is Attack the Day virtual 5K. So while we can't gather in person, you are invited to sign up and do things via run, walk, or hop on your treadmill for a 5K. You can register for all these upcoming events through the UGA Alumni Association webpage. We all look forward to seeing you guys there. And again, as we close out, thank you again, Tyler and Maria, for the time. And thank you for everyone who's able to join us today. We look forward to seeing you at future events, and enjoy the rest of your week. Hopefully you have some fun summer plans coming up with the great weather. See you guys next time. Bye.